This is R2D Tech, and we just had WWDC, which is Apple's main software event of the year, and I thought I'd share some of my favorite parts of that with you guys, so stay tuned. So we've had Sidecar for a while now on the iPad and Mac, and that's basically where you can either mirror your Mac display onto your iPad or use your iPad as a second display. And Apple have taken this and just gone one step further. So instead of just being like a secondary Mac display now, you can actually just use your Mac keyboard and mouse, and if you go across too far to the right, that will just appear on your iPad, which is running iPad OS. So it's no longer just like a secondary display to your Mac. It's its own standalone device running iPad OS, but you can use the Apple Mac's keyboard and mouse on the iPad as well if you just move across between the two. This is quite nice because it means that you can use the software which is intended for the iPad rather than having some sort of mirrored version of your Mac on your iPad display. One thing that I really like though is that you can just seamlessly drag files from your Mac across onto your iPad as long as the iPad is nearby and running the correct software. This is what makes the Apple ecosystem so good, especially after this update, because everything just works together so perfectly. If you have an iPad, a Mac, AirPods, maybe an iPhone, you can basically do anything between them completely seamlessly without even thinking about it, especially with this new update where now the iPad can just be its own standalone device, but as long as it's near your Mac, you can basically just interlink files or anything, or even your mouse and keyboard between them. I've probably gone on for too long about that though, so the next thing which I thought was very interesting, especially for Apple, is that you can share FaceTime links now for future calls or even current calls to anyone. That includes Android, Windows, any other platform, or even other iPhones. And they can join on their browser if they don't have an iPhone. This is really exciting because it's showing that Apple are open to the idea of sharing their software packages or their software experiences with other platforms, which they haven't really done much in the past. Watching Craig talk about this quite a lot, it seems like quite the obvious move, especially in the COVID environment and with something like FaceTime. Because chances are, if you're doing a business meeting or a call or something, not everyone in that call will have an iPhone. And so instead of using FaceTime, you'd probably default to something else like Zoom or Teams or Skype. So by making this move, Apple are basically expanding their reach so that more people will use FaceTime. That's not the only thing that they've improved with FaceTime though. You can now blur your background quite nicely, and also it's got some nice integration with certain apps like Apple Music or the Disney streaming service, where if you're on a FaceTime call with other people, you can all be listening or watching the same thing at once, and it will automatically pause for everyone, for example, if you click pause on your device, which is quite a big issue at the moment. If you're on a Zoom call and you're trying to watch a movie with like 5 other people, you have to be like 3, 2, 1, play. And chances are you probably got it off sync a bit, or if somebody needs to pause, then you need to reset the whole thing, and it's a bit of a hassle. So it's a very nice feature to have on a video call service. I really hope that they expand their reach to other apps like Spotify, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and things like that. I'm sure they will. The next thing is also very surprising for Apple, but a good move in my opinion, and that's that they're allowing third-party companies to use Siri in their products for the first time. This is a great move because there's so many smart home devices out there and so many smart speakers, and if Apple can get Siri onto a large proportion of them, they could really take Siri up to the next level, because at the moment it's basically just Google Assistant or Amazon Alexa which are controlling the game. I do still think that Google Assistant is on a slightly higher level than Siri, because it definitely feels a lot smarter when you communicate with it, but I'm sure that Apple have a lot of people working on Siri, especially if they're making a move like this, and I don't think it will be too long before Siri is on par with the other top assistants. Moving on, we've now got a feature called Live Text, which is going to sound very familiar, Google Lens, where if there's text and you're pointing your camera at that text, you'll be able to copy it, or if it's a phone number, you'll be able to call that phone number and other things like that. Of course, although this feature is definitely not 100% original, it does seem very nice to have on your camera app, And from the demos, it seems very smooth, where it will just work straight out the camera app on your iPhone, and you won't have to click any other lens button or anything like that. It will just show up. If there's text, you'll be able to copy it straight from the camera app. Apple have a good track record with being slightly late to the game on some features like this, but then doing it really well. And again, from the demos, this one seems very promising. Just a few more on my list to go through, but of course, if you want to see the full scale of the features that they announce, you might want to watch the actual WWDC event by Apple. So next up, we've got a complete redesign of Safari, which is long overdue. I think the main change is the tab design and the way that you switch between tabs on your iPhone. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of privacy upgrades and things like that which you don't really get to see when you use it on a day-to-day basis, but I'm just happy that they've finally redesigned it. The next thing might seem quite minor to most people, but that's that you can now track your family's health if they allow it on the Apple Health app. And this is something which I think can be quite important, especially if you worry about your grandparents or older people in your family and you want to be able to make sure that they're okay all the time. So for example, you could give an Apple Watch to one of your older relatives and it could track things like their heart rate, and if there's an issue, you could probably get notified on your phone as long as they've allowed that access, and you don't have to worry so much. Yes, this is quite a niche feature, but it's something which I think can be potentially quite useful in lots of families. Now for the last thing on my list, which I think should have come out along with the iPhone release of this feature, which is that you can drag widgets anywhere on your home screen for the iPad OS as well now. So with your iPhone, you probably know, or I hope you know, that you can drag widgets wherever you want. It doesn't just have to be on the sidebar that you pull out from the left-hand side, whereas on the iPad, they kind of stuck to the initial iPad OS design where the widgets are just on the homepage on the left and you can scroll through them. Now you can also drag those widgets anywhere onto your home screen on the iPad and choose different sizes and things like that, which is quite a nice feature to have and is something which is going to make the iPad OS experience quite a lot better. So for me, those were the main things that caught my eye. Again, there are a lot more features which they released, but you can see the whole WWDC keynote if you want to get everything. Definitely let me know in the comments section what your favorite features were, or if you didn't like any of them at all, that's cool too. And if you like the video, please leave a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, then definitely smash the subscribe button and the notification bell below.